Denise Thompson stood in her kitchen at 2 a.m., hands trembling as she stared at her husband's phone. 12 text messages, all from the same woman, all describing things that made her stomach turn. After 8 years of marriage, 8 years of hiding who she really was, 8 years of loving a man who never deserved it, she finally had proof. What Garrett didn't know, what nobody knew, was that the poor nonprofit worker he was about to abandon owned a secret empire worth $350 million, and she was about to destroy everything he thought he wanted. If you've ever been underestimated, called worthless, or thrown away by someone who didn't see your value, this story is for you. Subscribe now and stay until the end. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. The phone screen glowed in the darkness of the kitchen. Denise Thompson's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She'd woken up to use the bathroom and noticed Garrett's phone buzzing on the nightstand. He never left it unattended. Not anymore. For months, that phone had been glued to his hand like a lifeline. Tonight, he'd made a mistake. She scrolled through the messages, each one hitting her chest like a physical blow. I can't stop thinking about last night. When are you leaving her? She doesn't appreciate you like I do. The sender's name sat at the top of the screen. Ashley Brooks Wellington. Denise knew that name. Everyone in Atlanta real estate knew that name. Blonde hair, designer everything. Face frozen with enough Botox to stop time. She'd seen Ashley at charity events, always circling married men like a shark sensing blood in the water. Now that shark had found her husband. Denise set the phone down exactly where Garrett had left it. She walked to the kitchen, poured herself a glass of water, and sat at the small breakfast table they'd bought together 6 years ago. She didn't cry. She should have cried. A normal wife would cry. But Denise Marie Thompson had spent 42 years learning that tears didn't solve problems. Action did. Her mind was already calculating, planning, processing. 8 years of marriage. 8 years of pretending. 8 years of hiding a $350 million empire because she wanted someone to love her for who she was inside, not what she had in her bank accounts. And now, this. The next morning, Denise made breakfast like nothing had happened. Scrambled eggs, turkey bacon, wheat toast with that organic jam Garrett complained about paying for. Garrett walked into the kitchen in his Brooks Brothers robe, checking his phone before he even said good morning. Of course he was checking his phone. "Morning," he muttered, not looking up. "Morning, baby. Coffee's ready." He poured himself a cup, still scrolling, probably deleting evidence. Probably texting Ashley that he missed her already. Denise watched him from the stove. 6'1", still handsome at 45, despite the softness creeping around his middle. Blue eyes she used to think were kind. Now she saw them clearly. Calculating, always measuring, always comparing. "I have a late meeting tonight," Garrett said, finally pocketing his phone. "Don't wait up." "Another one? That's the third this week." "It's a big campaign, Denise. You wouldn't understand. Marketing isn't like your little charity work." Your little charity work. He'd been saying things like that for 2 years now. Little jabs, small cuts. Death by 1,000 paper cuts, her mother would say. "I understand hard work, Garrett," he snorted. "Do you? You've been at that nonprofit for what, 6 years? Making $52,000 a year? Meanwhile, my colleagues' wives are running their own businesses, driving nice cars, actually contributing." Denise set his plate down in front of him. Her voice stayed calm. "I contribute." "To what? Helping people who won't help themselves?" He took a bite of eggs. "I'm just saying, babe, maybe it's time to think bigger. Get a real job. Something I can actually brag about at work functions." Something he could brag about. Denise thought about the wellness center chain she'd built from nothing. 12 locations across the Southeast, 200 employees, revenue that made Garrett's salary look like pocket change. She thought about the angel investment portfolio that had turned 3 tech startups into household names, the real estate holdings in 4 states, the charitable foundation that had given away more money last year than Garrett would earn in his entire lifetime. But she didn't say any of that. She never did. "I'll think about it," she said instead. Garrett nodded like he'd won something. "Good. Oh, and maybe do something with your hair this week. The Henderson party is Saturday. Margaret Henderson always looks put together." He left for work without kissing her goodbye. Denise stood at the kitchen window, watching his BMW pull out of the driveway. The car she'd secretly paid off when he was 3 months behind on payments. The car he thought he'd earned through his own hard work. She picked up her phone and called the only person who knew everything. "Trish, I need you at the house. Now." Patricia Banks arrived 45 minutes later with 2 cups of coffee from their favorite spot and a look that said she already knew something was wrong. "What did he do?" Denise handed her the screenshot she'd taken of Garrett's phone before he woke up. Trish's face hardened with each swipe. "Ashley Brooks Wellington. That tacky vulture. I knew it. I told you something was off with him." "You did tell me." "For 2 years, Denise. 2 years I've been watching that man treat you like you're beneath him. The comments about your hair, the way he corrects you in public, the way he acts like his little marketing job makes him some kind of king." Denise sat down heavily. "I thought if I was patient, if I gave him time, he'd go back to who he was when we met." "Honey," Trish sat across from her, grabbing her hands. "Who he was when you met was an act. Men like Garrett Mitchell are always performing. He saw you as a challenge. Pretty black woman at a charity gala, smart, kind, didn't care about his fancy Dartmouth degree. He wanted to conquer you. Now he's bored and looking for his next conquest." "What do I do?" "What do you want to do?" Denise looked around the modest kitchen. The appliances she'd let Garrett think they could barely afford. The car in the garage she'd pretended was a budget necessity. The entire life she'd constructed to test whether someone could love her without knowing about the money. "I want to know everything," she said. "Before I make any decisions, I want to know exactly what I'm dealing with." Trish nodded. "I know a guy, private investigator. Used him when Marcus was going through his divorce. Thorough, discreet, and expensive. Not that money's an issue for you. Call him." The investigator's name was Raymond Cross, ex-FBI, now running his own firm out of a nondescript office in Buckhead. Denise met with him the next day, during what Garrett thought was her regular volunteer shift. "Mrs. Mitchell," Raymond spread photographs across his desk. "I've been watching your husband for 3 days. Here's what I've found." The photos were devastating. Garrett and Ashley holding hands at a restaurant Denise had never heard of. Garrett opening Ashley's car door, something he hadn't done for Denise in years. Garrett and Ashley walking into a hotel in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon. And then the photo that stopped Denise's heart. Garrett and Ashley standing at a jewelry counter, looking at rings. "When was this taken?" "Yesterday, around 4 p.m. They spent about 30 minutes with the sales associate. Your husband tried on a wedding band." "A wedding band?" "He was planning to marry her, while still married to Denise." Raymond continued, "I also did a financial background on Ms. Brooks Wellington. Thought you might want to know what you're dealing with." "And?" "She's broke. Completely. The penthouse is 3 months behind on rent. Her Mercedes is about to be repossessed. She lost 2 major listings last month due to complaints from clients. Her ex-husband's lawyers are still chasing her for money she owes from the divorce settlement. Denise almost laughed. So she's after Garrett for his money? That's my assessment, yes. She probably thinks he's more successful than he is. Nice car, nice clothes, talks a big game. She doesn't know he's also leveraged to the hilt. What do you mean? Raymond pulled out another folder. I took the liberty of running a quick financial profile on your husband as well. Credit card debt, $47,000. Personal loan from his 401k, $22,000. He's been making minimum payments for 6 months. His lifestyle is entirely smoke and mirrors, Mrs. Mitchell. He can barely afford his own life, let alone keep a woman like Ashley Brooks Wellington happy. Two broke people, thinking they'd found their meal ticket in each other. The irony was almost too perfect. What would you like me to do? Raymond asked. Denise gathered the photographs carefully. Keep watching. Document everything. I want to know every lie he tells, every secret meeting, every plan they make. When I'm ready, I want enough evidence to bury him in divorce court. You're not going to confront him? Not yet. Denise stood, smoothing her modest dress. The kind of dress Garrett thought was all she could afford. I've spent 8 years playing a role, Mr. Cross. I can play it a little longer, until I'm ready to show him exactly who he married. 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks of watching Garrett lie to her face. 2 weeks of late meetings that were hotel rooms. 2 weeks of him criticizing her clothes, her hair, her job, her ambition, while spending money he didn't have on a woman who was using him. Denise played her part perfectly. She cooked his dinners. She nodded at his advice to do better. She pretended not to notice when he came home smelling like perfume that wasn't hers. Every night, Raymond sent updates. Garrett had taken Ashley to 3 more dinners. He'd bought her a $3,000 bracelet on a credit card that was already maxed out. He'd told Ashley he was working on leaving his wife. She's getting impatient, Raymond reported, pushing him to file for divorce. She wants a ring by spring. Denise waited. She needed Garrett to make the first move. She needed him to be the one who walked away, thinking he was leaving behind a poor, helpless woman who would never recover. She wanted him to feel powerful when he left her, so that the fall would be that much harder. The night everything changed started like any other. Garrett came home at 10 p.m., smelling like expensive perfume. Denise was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea she hadn't touched. "We need to talk," she said quietly. Garrett froze. Something in her tone made him cautious. About what? About Ashley Brooks Wellington. The color drained from his face. For a moment, he looked like he might deny it, might try to explain, might do what any normal husband would do when caught. Instead, he laughed. He actually laughed. "So you finally figured it out. I was wondering how long it would take you." Denise felt something cold settle in her chest. "You're not even going to deny it?" "Why would I? Denise, let's be honest with each other for once." He sat down across from her, and she saw it. The cruelty he'd been hiding for years. It was all over his face now, no longer bothering to hide behind charm. "I've been trying to figure out how to tell you this for months," he said. "But honestly, I'm relieved you know. Ashley and I are in love. Real love, not this settling I've been doing with you." Settling? Don't act surprised. You know what you are. A non-profit worker making barely enough to survive. No ambition, no drive. You wear the same 5 outfits on rotation. You do your hair yourself instead of going to a real salon. Do you know how embarrassing it is to bring you to work functions? How humiliating it is when my colleagues ask what my wife does, and I have to say she works at some Charity? Each word was a knife. Not because they hurt her self-esteem. Denise knew exactly who she was and what she'd accomplished. They hurt because this man she'd loved, this man she'd trusted with 8 years of her life, had been hiding this contempt the entire time. Ashley has class, Garrett continued. She understands what it takes to succeed. She drives a Mercedes. She lives in a penthouse. She knows how to present herself. You could learn a lot from her. Could I? You could. But honestly, I don't think you have it in you. Some people are just small, content with their small lives and small dreams. I need more than that. I deserve more than that. Denise kept her voice steady. So, what are you saying, Garrett? He leaned back, looking almost proud of himself. I'm saying I want a divorce. I'm moving in with Ashley. You can keep the apartment. God knows I don't want it. My lawyer will be in touch about splitting our assets. Shouldn't take long. We don't have much. We don't have much. Denise thought about the $350 million he didn't know existed. The companies, the properties, the foundation, the legacy she'd built while he thought she was clipping coupons and counting pennies. You're sure about this? She asked. Never been more sure of anything in my life. Ashley is my future. You were just a mistake I made when I was too young to know better. A mistake. 8 years of marriage. A mistake. Then I won't stand in your way, Denise said quietly. Garrett looked surprised. He'd expected begging, crying, desperate attempts to save the marriage. Instead, he got calm acceptance. That's it? You're not going to fight for us? Would it matter if I did? He considered this. No, I suppose not. Then there's nothing left to say. Denise stood up. Pack your things tonight. I don't want to drag this out. Garrett blinked, thrown off by her composure. This wasn't how the script was supposed to go. The poor wife was supposed to fall apart without him. Fine, he said, recovering his arrogance. I'll be out by morning. He spent the next 2 hours packing everything he deemed valuable. His clothes, his watch collection, his electronics, his golf clubs. He left behind anything that reminded him of their poor life together. At 1 a.m., he loaded the last box into his BMW. Denise stood in the doorway, wearing the same modest cardigan she'd worn the day they met, the same kind of outfit he'd called embarrassing. Garrett paused before getting in his car. He couldn't resist one final jab. You know what your problem is, Denise? You don't know your place in the world. You think being kind and hardworking is enough. It's not. Money is what matters. Status. Power. Ashley understands that. You never will. He shook his head, almost pitying her. Goodbye, Denise. Try not to struggle too much without me. Although, honestly, I don't know how you'll survive. You've got nothing. You are nothing. He got in his car. Denise watched him drive away, his taillights disappearing around the corner. And then, for the first time in 8 years, she smiled. She walked back inside, picked up her other phone, the one Garrett never knew existed, and made a call. Patricia, it's done. He left. Finally, how do you feel? Relieved. So relieved I could cry. What do you want to do? Denise looked around the modest apartment. The furniture Garrett thought was all they could afford. The appliances she'd deliberately bought secondhand. The entire life she'd constructed as a test. A test Garrett had failed spectacularly. Schedule board meetings for all 3 companies, she said. Call my stylist, get my legal team ready. It's time for the real Denise Thompson to come out. She hung up and walked to the window. Somewhere across the city, Garrett was driving to his new life with Ashley. Two broke people who thought they'd escaped a poor woman who would never amount to anything. They had no idea what was coming. Garrett Mitchell had called her nothing. He'd called her worthless. He'd thrown away 8 years of marriage for a woman in a rented penthouse with a leased Mercedes and a mountain of debt. And he'd done it all without knowing one simple truth. The woman he'd just abandoned owned enough to buy his entire world and burn it to the ground. The real Denise Thompson was about to wake up, and Garrett Mitchell was about to learn the most expensive lesson of his life. 3 days after Garrett walked out, Denise Thompson walked into the headquarters of Thompson Wellness Group for the first time in 8 years without disguise. The security guard at the front desk did a double take. "Mrs. Thompson, I almost didn't recognize you." Denise smiled. Her natural curls fell loose around her shoulders instead of hidden in the tight bun she'd worn for nearly a decade. The designer suit hugged her curves perfectly. The diamond earrings caught the light with every movement. "Good morning, Marcus. Is Patricia upstairs?" "Yes, ma'am. She's been here since 6. Denise took the private elevator to the executive floor. When the doors opened, Patricia was waiting with 2 cups of coffee and a grin that could light up Atlanta. "There she is." Trish pulled her into a hug. "The real Denise Thompson. I've missed her." "I've missed her too." They walked into Denise's corner office. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city skyline. Awards and certificates lined the walls. Photos of ribbon cuttings, charity events, groundbreaking ceremonies. 8 years of success that Garrett never knew existed. "So," Trish sat down across from her, "how does it feel?" "Strange, like waking up from a dream I didn't realize I was having." "A nightmare, you mean? That man was a nightmare." Denise couldn't argue. "What's our status?" Trish opened her tablet. "All 12 wellness centers are operating at capacity. Revenue is up 17% from last quarter. The Miami expansion is ahead of schedule. Your angel investments are performing well, especially the healthcare AI startup. And the foundation gave away $4.2 million last month to single mothers' housing programs." Numbers that would have made Garrett's head spin. "What about the divorce?" "Your legal team filed yesterday. Standard no-fault divorce. Georgia law requires a 30-day waiting period, but everything should be finalized within 60 days. "And the financial disclosure?" Trish's smile turned sharp. "That's where things get interesting. By law, you have to disclose all assets during divorce proceedings, which means Garrett Mitchell is about to find out exactly who he walked away from." Denise leaned back in her chair. "When will he receive the documents?" "His lawyer should have them by end of business today." For a moment, Denise allowed herself to imagine Garrett's face when he opened that folder. The man who had called her nothing was about to discover that nothing was worth $350 million. "There's something else," Trish said carefully. "Raymond sent his final report this morning. You need to see this." She slid a folder across the desk. Denise opened it. More photographs. More evidence of Garrett's double life. But these were different. Garrett arguing with Ashley in a parking lot. Ashley throwing something at Garrett's car. Garrett storming away while Ashley screamed after him. Trouble in paradise already? It gets better. Raymond got audio. Trish pulled out her phone and pressed play. Ashley's voice filled the office, shrill with anger. "You told me you had money. You said you were a senior director making 6 figures. How are you broke, Garrett? How is your credit card declined at dinner?" Garrett's voice, defensive. "I'm not broke. I just need time to liquidate some assets. Once the divorce is final, I'll get my share of everything." "Your share of what? You told me your wife is a charity worker. What assets does a charity worker have?" "There's the apartment, Some savings. It's not nothing. Ashley laughed bitterly. I left my condo for this? I turned down 3 other men for you. You're supposed to be taking care of me, Garrett. That's the whole point. I will take care of you, baby. Just give me time. Time? I don't have time. My landlord is threatening eviction. My car payment is due. I need money now, Garrett. Figure it out. The recording ended. Denise looked at Trish. They're both broke. Completely. 2 con artists who conned each other. It would be funny if it wasn't so pathetic. How much debt is Ashley actually in? Raymond estimates around $180,000. Credit cards, personal loans, back rent. She's been living a lifestyle she couldn't afford for years, hoping to marry her way out of it. Garrett was supposed to be her rescue. And instead she got another sinking ship. Exactly. They deserve each other. Denise closed the folder. Part of her wanted to feel satisfied. This was karma, delivered faster than she could have hoped. But another part of her just felt tired. 8 years of hiding. 8 years of testing. And for what? To prove that the man she loved was exactly what she feared? What do you want to do? Trish asked. Nothing yet. Let them struggle. Let them fight. Let them realize what they've gotten themselves into. Denise stood and walked to the window. When Garrett finds out about my money, everything will change. I want to see what he does with that information. You think he'll come crawling back? I think Garrett Mitchell has never taken responsibility for anything in his life. He'll try to find an angle, a way to benefit from this. That's who he is. And when he does? Denise turned back to face her best friend. Then I'll be ready. Across town, Garrett Mitchell was having the worst week of his life. Ashley's penthouse wasn't what he'd expected. Yes, it had the view. Yes, it had the marble countertops and the modern furniture. But it also had final notice bills stacked on the kitchen counter. It had a refrigerator with nothing but champagne and leftover takeout. It had closets full of designer clothes with tags still attached, bought on credit that was now maxed out. This isn't what you told me, Garrett said on day 2. You said you were successful. You said you had money. Ashley's perfect face twisted. I am successful. I'm a luxury real estate agent who hasn't sold a house in 3 months. The market is slow. It's not my fault. Then whose fault is it? Because right now, we're living in an apartment you can't afford, driving a car that's about to be repossessed, wearing clothes we can't pay for. We? There is no we, Garrett. You were supposed to solve this problem. That's why I invested in you. That's why I helped you leave your boring wife, so you could take care of me. Garrett felt the walls closing in. He'd imagined this so differently. He'd imagined luxury, comfort, a woman who appreciated his ambition and matched it with her own success. Instead, he'd gotten another version of the trap he thought he was escaping. I need to talk to my lawyer, he muttered. The divorce settlement will help. Your wife works at a nonprofit. What settlement? There's something. There has to be something. His phone buzzed. His lawyer's name flashed on the screen. Richard, tell me you have good news. Garrett. Richard's voice was strange. Strained. I just received the financial disclosure from your wife's legal team. We need to meet. Today. Can't you just tell me over the phone? A long pause. No. This needs to be in person. Trust me. Garrett arrived at his lawyer's office an hour later. Richard Chen was a competent divorce attorney who had handled dozens of straightforward cases. He'd expected this to be one of them. Modest assets, simple division, quick resolution. He'd been wrong. Sit down, Garrett. What's going on? You're making me nervous. Richard slid a folder across the desk, the same folder that had been delivered from Denise's legal team that morning. He watched Garrett open it. He watched the color drain from his client's face. Garrett's hands were shaking. This can't be real. I had my team verify everything. It's real. Garrett flipped through the pages. Thompson Wellness Group. Annual revenue, $47 million. Thompson Angel Investments. Portfolio value, $89 million. Thompson Family Foundation. Assets, $31 million. Real estate holdings in Georgia, Florida, Texas, and California. Total estimated net worth, $350 million. His wife. His poor, boring, charity worker wife. $350 million. I don't understand, Garrett whispered. She works at a nonprofit. She clips coupons. She buys clothes at thrift stores. How is this possible? Apparently, the nonprofit where she works is one she founded and funded herself. The companies are all real, all profitable, all hers. She's been building this empire for over 15 years. And she never told me? It appears not. Garrett felt like the room was spinning. Every conversation they'd ever had was rearranging itself in his mind. Every time he'd criticized her job. Every time he'd told her to be more ambitious. Every time he'd complained about their modest lifestyle. She'd been sitting on a fortune, and she'd let him believe she was nobody. Why? He breathed. Why would she hide this? Richard shrugged. That's not my concern. My concern is the divorce settlement. Given the length of your marriage and Georgia's equitable distribution laws, you could potentially claim a significant portion of these assets. Garrett's head snapped up. What kind of portion? It's complicated. Most of her wealth was accumulated before marriage and is held in various trusts and corporate structures. But there's definitely room to argue for a substantial settlement. We're talking millions, Garrett. Potentially tens of millions. Millions. Tens of millions. Garrett's mind was racing. He'd walked away from this woman thinking she had nothing. He'd chosen Ashley, thinking she was the path to the life he wanted. And the whole time, Denise had been richer than anyone he'd ever met. What do I do? For now, nothing. Let me analyze the disclosure documents and develop a strategy. But Garrett, I have to ask, is there any chance of reconciliation? Reconciliation? With your wife. If you could repair the marriage, you'd have access to all of this without a messy divorce battle. Just something to consider. Garrett thought about the things he'd said to Denise. The insults, the cruelty, the way he'd called her nothing and worthless and a mistake. Could he take that back? Could he convince her he didn't mean it? I need to talk to her, Garrett said. I need to understand what happened. I'd advise against direct contact at this stage. I don't care. She's still my wife. I have a right to talk to her. He left Richard's office with his head swimming. Denise Thompson, $350 million. 3 companies. A foundation. A legacy. And she'd hidden it all while he complained about her thrift store clothes. Garrett didn't go back to Ashley's apartment. He drove to the address listed in the divorce papers as Denise's current residence. His GPS led him to a neighborhood he didn't recognize. Gated communities. Mansions set back from the road. The kind of area where people who actually had money lived, not people who pretended. The gate required a code. Garrett pressed the intercom button. Can I help you? I'm here to see Denise Thompson. Tell her it's Garrett, her husband. A long pause. Then the gate opened. He drove up a winding driveway, lined with perfect landscaping. The house that emerged was stunning. Colonial architecture, immaculate grounds, at least 15,000 square feet. This was where his wife lived. His wife, who he thought couldn't afford new clothes. Denise was waiting at the front door. She looked different. Not like the woman he'd left 3 days ago. Her hair was down, natural curls framing her face. She wore a simple white blouse and designer jeans that fit her perfectly. Diamond studs in her ears, a confidence in her posture that he'd never seen before. She looked like money. "Hello, Garrett." "Denise." He couldn't find other words. "Would you like to come in?" She led him through a foyer bigger than their entire apartment, through a living room filled with art he didn't recognize but knew was expensive, into a sunroom with views of a pool and gardens that stretched to the horizon. "Please, sit." Garrett sat. His legs felt weak. "I imagine you have questions," Denise said. "How?" It was all he could manage. "How did I make the money? Or how did I hide it?" "Both. Either. I don't know." "Denise, I just found out my wife is worth $350 million. I think I'm entitled to some explanation." Denise sat across from him, perfectly composed. This was a woman he didn't recognize. Or maybe he was seeing her clearly for the first time. "I started my first company when I was 24, an app that helped people find affordable healthcare options. It did well. I sold it for $15 million. I invested that money wisely. Started the wellness centers. Made more. Invested more. Built the foundation. It's not complicated, Garrett. It's just hard work over many years." "And you never told me." "No, I never told you." "Why?" Denise looked at him steadily. "Because I wanted someone to love me for who I was, not for what I had. I've been used before, Garrett, by people who saw dollar signs instead of a person. When I met you, I thought you were different. You seemed to genuinely care about me, not about money or status." "I did care about you." "Did you? Because the man who left me 3 days ago didn't seem to care about anything except what I couldn't give him. Status, image, a wife he could brag about." Garrett felt the words like a slap. "Denise, I was frustrated. I said things I didn't mean." "You called me worthless." "I didn't mean that." "You called me a mistake. You said I was nothing." "I was angry. I was confused. But this changes everything, don't you see? If I'd known who you really were, things would have been different." Denise's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes turned cold. "That's exactly the problem, Garrett. You're saying if you'd known I was rich, you would have treated me differently. That doesn't make it better. That makes it worse. It means you only value people based on what they can do for you." "That's not what I meant." "It's exactly what you meant. You want to know why I hid my wealth? Because I was testing you. I wanted to see if you could love someone who had nothing to offer but herself. And you failed, Garrett, spectacularly." Garrett stood up, pacing. His mind was racing, trying to find an angle, a way to spin this. Okay, I made mistakes. I admit that. But Denise, we have 8 years together. That has to mean something. We can work through this, go to counseling, start over. Now that everything's out in the open, we can build something real." Denise laughed. It wasn't cruel, but it wasn't kind either, just honest. "You want to stay married to me because you found out I'm rich. I want to stay married to you because I love you. You left me for another woman 3 days ago." "A mistake. You said it yourself. I was confused. Ashley was filling my head with ideas. But she's not you. She's not real like you are." "Ashley is exactly what you said you wanted. Sophisticated. Successful. Someone who understood ambition. I was wrong. I see that now. Denise stood up slowly. Do you know what I see, Garrett? I see a man who is exactly who I feared he was. You didn't come here because you love me. You came here because you saw my bank account and realized you made a financial mistake. If I were still the poor nonprofit worker you thought I was, you'd be planning your wedding to Ashley right now. That's not fair. It's perfectly fair. It's the truth. She walked to the door of the sunroom, holding it open. I think you should leave. Denise, please, let's talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. You made your choice. You chose Ashley. You chose to walk away from our marriage. I'm simply honoring that choice. I was wrong. I'm telling you, I was wrong. Yes, you were. And you'll have plenty of time to think about how wrong you were. My legal team will be in touch about the divorce proceedings. Garrett didn't move. He couldn't believe this was happening. He'd come here expecting to find a way back in, a way to access this wealth he'd stumbled upon. Instead, he was being dismissed like a servant. You can't do this, he said. You can't just throw away 8 years. I didn't throw anything away. You did. When you packed your bags and drove to another woman's apartment. When you called me worthless. When you chose image over substance. Denise's voice was steady, calm. I'm simply accepting what you already decided. We're done, Garrett. We've been done for longer than either of us wanted to admit. Garrett's face twisted. The charm was gone now, the pretense of reconciliation. What was left was anger. You tricked me, he said. You lied to me for 8 years. You let me think we were equals when you were sitting on a fortune. I let you show me who you really were. That's not the same thing. I'll fight you in court. 8 years of marriage, I'm entitled to half. You're entitled to whatever the courts decide. And Garrett, I have very good lawyers. I suggest you get better ones. She gestured toward the door one final time. Garrett straightened his jacket, trying to salvage some dignity. This isn't over, Denise. Yes, it is. He walked out. Denise watched his BMW disappear down the driveway. When the gate closed behind him, she let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Her phone rang. Trish. How did it go? About how I expected. He wants to reconcile. He thinks I should take him back now that he knows I'm rich. Of course he does. What did you say? I told him we're done. Good. And how do you feel? Denise looked out the window at her gardens, her pool, her beautiful home that she'd earned through years of hard work and smart decisions. I feel like I finally woke up from an 8-year nightmare. Meanwhile, Garrett drove straight to Ashley's apartment, his mind churning with rage and calculation. She was on the couch when he walked in, scrolling her phone with a bored expression. Where have you been? At my wife's house. Ashley's head snapped up. Your wife's? What do you mean, your wife's house? I thought she lived in that little apartment. Garrett laughed bitterly. So did I. Turns out my wife has been hiding a few things. He pulled out his phone, showing Ashley the photos he'd taken of Denise's estate through the car window. Ashley's eyes went wide. That's her house? One of them, apparently. She's worth $350 million, Ashley. My boring, worthless wife is richer than anyone we've ever met. Ashley's face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Shock, calculation, and then something harder. And you left her? You left a woman worth $350 million for me? I didn't know. You didn't know your own wife was a millionaire? She hid it. She pretended to be poor. She tricked me. Ashley stood up, pacing the apartment that suddenly felt very small. "This is incredible. This is absolutely incredible. You had everything, Garrett. Everything. And you threw it away." "I thought you were the better choice." Ashley whirled on him. "I'm the better choice? Look around you. Look at this apartment. I'm drowning in debt, Garrett. My electricity is about to be shut off. I thought you were going to save me, and instead, you're just as broke as I am." "We can still fix this. She said she'll fight me in court. But 8 years of marriage, I have to get something." "Something? You need to get everything. You need to go back to that woman and beg. Crawl if you have to. Tell her whatever she needs to hear to take you back." "She won't. I tried. She told me we're done." Ashley's laugh was cold. "Then make her undone. You think I'm the one who can change my mind about people? Garrett, I've seen the way you charm clients, the way you make people trust you. Use that. Tell her you love her. Tell her you made a terrible mistake. Tell her anything she needs to hear." "And what about us?" Ashley's expression was pure calculation now. No pretense of love or affection. "What about us? If you get back with your rich wife, you'll have access to her money. And if you have access to her money, you can help me. That's the arrangement, Garrett. That's always been the arrangement." Garrett stared at the woman he'd left his marriage for. The woman he'd thought represented sophistication and success. She was nothing but a con artist, just like him. "You never loved me," he said slowly. "This was always about money." "Of course it was about money. Love doesn't pay bills. Love doesn't keep the lights on. You understood that. That's why you left your wife in the first place." She was right. He knew she was right. He'd left Denise because he thought he could trade up. Now he realized he traded everything for nothing. "I need to think," Garrett muttered. "You need to act. Before she moves all her assets into trusts your lawyers can't touch." Garrett grabbed his keys and walked out without another word. Back at the estate, Denise was on the phone with her brother. "You should have let me look into him years ago," Marcus said. "I knew something was wrong with that man." "You were right. You and Mom were both right. I was too stubborn to see it." "What matters now is that you're free. What's your next move?" Denise smiled. "My next move is living my real life. No more hiding, no more pretending. I'm going to run my companies in the open, expand the foundation, and find someone who loves me for who I actually am." "Anyone in mind?" "Not yet, but I'm not in a hurry. I spent 8 years with the wrong person. I can spend a little time finding the right one." "Mom wants you to come to Sunday dinner. She's been praying for this day since you married that man." "Tell her I'll be there." Denise hung up and looked around her office. Photos of ribbon cuttings and charity events. Awards for business excellence. Evidence of a life well lived, hidden from the person who should have been closest to her. Never again. From now on, Denise Thompson would be exactly who she was. No disguises, no tests, no hiding. And if Garrett Mitchell thought this was over, he was about to learn just how wrong he was. Because the woman he called worthless was just getting started. 2 weeks after Garrett's visit to the estate, Denise received a phone call that changed everything. "Mrs. Thompson, this is Detective Morrison from Atlanta PD. Your brother Marcus gave me your number. We need to talk about your husband." Denise gripped the phone tighter. "What about him?" "We've received a complaint. A woman named Ashley Brooks Wellington has filed fraud charges against Garrett Mitchell. She claims he misrepresented his financial status to obtain money and gifts from her." Denise almost laughed. Ashley was pressing charges against Garrett for lying about money. The irony was almost too perfect. "What does this have to do with me?" "Ms. Brooks Wellington mentioned your name during questioning." She claims Mr. Mitchell told her he was planning to divorce his wealthy wife and that she would receive a substantial settlement. She says she invested money in the relationship based on these promises. Detective, I don't know what Ashley told you, but my husband didn't know about my wealth until after he left me. He thought I was poor. That's why he left. Silence on the other end. Mrs. Thompson, that's a very different story than what Ms. Brooks Wellington is telling us. I'm sure it is. Ashley Brooks Wellington seems to have a complicated relationship with the truth. Would you be willing to come in and give a statement? Of course. I have nothing to hide. Denise hung up and immediately called Trish. You're not going to believe this. Ashley is pressing fraud charges against Garrett. What? Why? Apparently, she claims he lied about having access to money through me. She's saying he promised her a settlement from our divorce. Trish burst out laughing. So the woman who was trying to steal your husband is now accusing him of stealing from her? This is beautiful. It gets better. The police want my statement. They want to know what Garrett knew and when. What are you going to tell them? Denise smiled. The truth. Every single word of it. The next morning, Denise walked into the Fulton County Police Station, dressed in a simple but expensive outfit that communicated exactly who she was. Not the poor nonprofit worker. The real Denise Thompson. Detective Morrison was a tired-looking man in his 50s who had clearly seen everything. He gestured for her to sit down. Thank you for coming in, Mrs. Thompson. Can you tell me about your relationship with Garrett Mitchell? We were married for 8 years. He left me 3 weeks ago for Ashley Brooks Wellington. And during your marriage, did Mr. Mitchell have access to your finances? No, he didn't know about my finances. Morrison looked up from his notes. What do you mean he didn't know? I mean I concealed my wealth from him. He believed I was a nonprofit worker making $52,000 a year. He had no idea I was worth $350 million. Morrison's pen stopped moving. $350 million? Yes. And your husband didn't know? Not until the divorce papers were filed. Financial disclosure is required by law. Morrison set down his pen and leaned back. Mrs. Thompson, I've been doing this job for 27 years. I've heard a lot of stories, but I have to admit, this is a new one. I'm sure it is. Why would you hide that kind of money from your own husband? Denise met his eyes steadily. Because I wanted to know if someone could love me without knowing about the money. I've been used before by people who saw dollar signs instead of a person. When I met Garrett, I thought he was different. I was wrong. Morrison nodded slowly. So when Miss Brooks Wellington claims that Mr. Mitchell promised her money from your divorce settlement, she was operating under false information. Garrett couldn't promise her money he didn't know existed. Whatever he told her was based on his own assumptions about my finances, assumptions that were completely wrong. And you have documentation of your assets? Proof that this wealth existed before and during the marriage? 15 years of tax returns, corporate filings, and financial statements. My legal team can provide anything you need. Morrison made a note. Mrs. Thompson, based on what you're telling me, it sounds like Mr. Mitchell may be as much a victim of his own assumptions as Miss Brooks Wellington is. But I have to ask, do you believe your husband knowingly defrauded her? Denise considered the question carefully. I believe Garrett told Ashley what she wanted to hear so she would stay with him. Whether that constitutes fraud, I'll leave to your legal experts. But I can tell you this. My husband is a man who has always been more concerned with image than reality. Whatever promises he made to Ashley were probably based on what he wished were true, not what actually was. And what do you think was true? I think Garrett Mitchell saw Ashley as his ticket to a better life, and Ashley saw Garrett the same way. Two people using each other, both operating under false assumptions. The only difference is that Ashley figured it out first and decided to make him pay. Morrison closed his notebook. "Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. This has been very helpful." "Detective, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "What happens to Garrett now?" Morrison shrugged. "That depends on whether the DA decides to press charges. Based on what you've told me, it sounds like Ms. Brooks Wellington's case is weaker than she thinks. But your husband may have other legal problems. There are questions about some credit card applications and loans he took out. If he misrepresented his financial situation on those, that's a different kind of fraud." Denise stood up. "I hope justice is served, whatever that looks like." She walked out of the police station and called Trish. "How did it go?" "Better than expected. Ashley's fraud case is probably going nowhere. But Garrett might have other problems. Apparently he's been less than honest on some loan applications. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. There's something else. The detective mentioned that Garrett's been trying to contact me through official channels. He wants to talk." "Are you going to?" Denise got into her car. "Not directly. But I think it's time for our lawyers to have a conversation." The divorce mediation was scheduled for the following week. Denise arrived with her legal team, 3 attorneys from one of Atlanta's most prestigious firms. Garrett arrived with Richard Chen, looking like a man who hadn't slept in days. They sat on opposite sides of a conference table. The mediator, a gray-haired woman named Judge Patricia Wells, looked between them. "We're here to discuss the dissolution of the marriage between Denise Marie Thompson and Garrett Andrew Mitchell. Both parties have submitted financial disclosures. Before we begin, are there any preliminary matters?" Richard Chen cleared his throat. "Your Honor, my client would like the opportunity to speak directly with Mrs. Thompson before we proceed." Denise's lead attorney, a sharp woman named Victoria Chang, shook her head. "My client has no interest in direct communication with Mr. Mitchell. All discussions should go through counsel." "Please." Garrett's voice was ragged. "Denise, just give me 5 minutes. I need to explain." Judge Wells looked at Denise. "Mrs. Thompson, it's your choice." Denise studied the man she'd married 8 years ago. He looked terrible. Pale, thin, desperate. The confident man who had walked out of their apartment calling her worthless was gone. In his place was someone who had finally realized what he'd lost. "5 minutes," Denise said. "In this room, with everyone present." Garrett nodded eagerly. "Denise, I know I hurt you. I know I said terrible things. But you have to understand, I didn't know. If I'd known who you really were, I never would have left." "That's the problem, Garrett. You only want me now because you know what I have, not because of who I am." "That's not true. I loved you. I still love you." "You loved an idea of me, the supportive wife who made you feel like the successful one. The moment I stopped fitting that image, you found someone else." "Ashley was a mistake. I see that now. She used me, Denise. She only wanted my money. Your money. Our money." Denise's expression didn't change. "And what did you want from her, Garrett?" He faltered. I thought she represented something. Success. Sophistication. You wanted a trophy. Someone to make you look good. That's not love. That's decoration." "I was wrong. I'm telling you, I was wrong." "Yes, you were." Garrett leaned forward desperately. "We can start over. I'll sign a postnup. I'll go to therapy. Whatever you want. Just don't throw away 8 years because of one mistake." "One mistake?" Denise's voice was calm but sharp. "Garrett, you carried on an affair for months. You told another woman you loved her. You planned a future with her. You called me worthless and nothing and a mistake. That's not one mistake. That's a pattern. People change. Do they? Because 3 weeks ago, you were telling Ashley you'd get millions from our divorce settlement. You were planning to use me, Garrett. Just like you always have. The only thing that's changed is that you found out I have more to take than you thought. Richard Chen put a hand on Garrett's arm. Garrett, this isn't helping. But Garrett shook him off. Denise, please, I'm begging you, don't do this. Don't destroy what we had. Denise stood up. You destroyed what we had when you walked out that door. I'm just cleaning up the pieces. She turned to Judge Wells. I'm ready to proceed with the mediation. The next 2 hours were brutal. Garrett's lawyer argued for substantial alimony and asset division. He claimed that Garrett had contributed to the marriage in non-financial ways and deserved compensation for 8 years of partnership. Victoria Chang systematically dismantled every argument. My client's wealth was accumulated primarily before the marriage and is held in trusts and corporate structures that are legally separate from marital assets. The apartment they shared was rented. The cars were in my client's name. Mr. Mitchell's contributions to the household were minimal at best. He provided emotional support, Richard argued weakly. Partnership, companionship. Victoria smiled coldly. The same companionship that led him to pursue an affair for 6 months? The same partnership that involved him calling my client worthless and walking out for another woman? Richard had no response. Judge Wells reviewed the documents. Based on the evidence presented, I'm inclined to agree with Mrs. Thompson's position. The vast majority of her wealth is clearly separate property. However, in the interest of fairness, I would recommend a settlement of $50,000 to Mr. Mitchell, representing a reasonable division of any marital assets accumulated during the marriage. $50,000. Garrett's face went white. 50,000? She's worth $350 million, and I get 50,000? You get what you're entitled to under the law, Mr. Mitchell. Your wife's premarital and separately held assets are not subject to division. This is insane. I gave her 8 years of my life. Victoria Chang spoke coolly. And she gave you 8 years of hers. The difference is, she spent those years building something. You spent them tearing her down. Garrett lunged across the table. You tricked me. You set me up. This whole marriage was a lie. Security had to be called. 2 guards pulled Garrett back while he screamed accusations at Denise. Fraud, deception, manipulation. Every word revealing more about who he was than who she was. Denise sat perfectly still through all of it. When Garrett was finally removed from the room, Judge Wells turned to her. Mrs. Thompson, I apologize for that display. Do you wish to press charges for his behavior? No, I just want this to be over. I understand. I'll file my recommendation with the court. Given Mr. Mitchell's outburst, I doubt any judge will award him more than what I've suggested. The divorce should be finalized within 30 days. Denise nodded. 30 days. After 8 years, 30 days to erase Garrett Mitchell from her life forever. That night, Denise had dinner with her mother. Mama Jean had set the table in the formal dining room, something she only did for special occasions. I heard about the mediation, she said, setting down plates of fried chicken and collard greens. Marcus told me Garrett lost his mind in front of the judge. He wasn't expecting the settlement to be so small. He wasn't expecting consequences. Men like that never do. Denise picked at her food. Mama, do you think I was wrong to hide who I was? Jean Thompson sat down across from her daughter. Baby, I think you did what you thought was necessary. You'd been hurt before. You wanted to protect yourself. But if I'd been honest from the start, maybe things would have been different. Different how? If Garrett had known about your money, he would have stayed for the wrong reasons. You would have spent your whole life wondering if he loved you or your bank account. At least this way, you know the truth. The truth hurts. The truth always hurts, but it's better than a lie. They ate in silence for a few moments. There's something else, Denise said. I met someone. Jean's eyebrows rose. Already? The ink isn't dry on your divorce papers. It's not like that. It's someone I've known for a while, through the foundation. His name is David. Tell me about him. Denise smiled. He's a doctor, pediatric surgeon at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. We've worked together on medical outreach programs for 3 years. He knows everything about me, Mama. The money, the companies, all of it. He knew before Garrett did. And he never tried to use that information? Never. He treats me exactly the same, whether we're at a board meeting or getting coffee at a gas station. Jean studied her daughter's face. You light up when you talk about him. Do I? Like a Christmas tree. When are you bringing him to Sunday dinner? Denise laughed. Maybe when I'm officially divorced. I don't want to complicate things. Complicated is fine. Happy is better. If this man makes you happy, don't let paperwork stand in the way. Denise reached across the table and squeezed her mother's hand. How did you get so wise? 68 years of making mistakes and learning from them. That's all wisdom is, baby. Experience, you survived. The next morning, Denise received a call from Raymond Cross. Mrs. Thompson, I have an update on your husband. I thought you'd want to know. What happened? Ashley Brooks Wellington dropped the fraud charges. Why? Because she found a new target. Apparently, she's already moved on to another married man, some real estate developer from Buckhead. Garrett is old news. Denise shook her head. So she's just going to do the same thing to someone else? Looks that way, but that's not all. Garrett's having some other problems. His former employer is suing him for breach of contract. Apparently, he took some clients with him when he quit, and they're not happy about it. He quit his job? Right after he moved in with Ashley. Thought he was about to come into money and didn't need to work anymore. The irony was staggering. Garrett had quit his job, alienated his wife, and lost his mistress, all based on assumptions that were completely wrong. What's he doing now? Living in a motel near the airport. His credit is destroyed. No one will hire him for a decent position after the lawsuit became public. Denise should have felt satisfied. This was karma, delivered faster and more completely than she could have imagined. But she didn't feel satisfied. She just felt tired. Thank you, Raymond. I think your services won't be needed anymore. Of course. It's been a pleasure working with you, Mrs. Thompson. Denise hung up and sat in her office, looking out at the Atlanta skyline. She thought about Garrett in that motel room, the man who had called her worthless, now facing a future with nothing. The man who had chased status and image, now watching both slip away. She didn't feel sorry for him. He had made his choices. He had shown her exactly who he was. But she also didn't feel the triumph she'd expected. There was no joy in watching someone destroy themselves, even someone who had hurt her. Her phone buzzed, a text from David. Saw the news about the mediation. How are you holding up? Denise smiled. Better than expected. Dinner tonight? I'd like that. Somewhere quiet. I know just the place. She put down the phone and looked at her reflection in the window. The woman looking back at her wasn't the poor non-profit worker Garrett had married. She wasn't the hidden billionaire she'd pretended to be. She was simply Denise Thompson. Successful, strong, finally free, and ready for whatever came next. That evening, as she prepared for dinner with David, her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. Denise? Garrett's voice was barely recognizable, broken, desperate. Please don't hang up. How did you get this number? It doesn't matter. Please, I just need you to listen. Denise should have hung up. Every instinct told her to hang up. But something in his voice made her pause. "You have 1 minute." "I've lost everything, Denise. Everything. My job, my apartment, my reputation. Ashley left me for someone else. My own family won't return my calls. I'm sitting in a motel room with $47 in my bank account and no idea what to do next." "And what do you want from me?" A long silence. "I don't know. I don't know anymore. I just needed to hear your voice. I needed to tell you that I'm sorry. Really sorry. Not because of the money. Because of what I did to you. What I said to you." Denise felt something shift in her chest. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But something close to it. "Garrett, I'm not going to rescue you. I'm not going to give you money or a place to stay or another chance. You made your choices. You have to live with them." "I know. I know. But I will tell you this. You're not worthless. I should never have let you call me that. And you should never say it about yourself. You made terrible decisions. You hurt people who cared about you. But that doesn't mean you can't change. It just means you have to do the work." "How do I do that?" "I don't know. That's something you have to figure out for yourself. But Garrett, the man I married wasn't all bad. He was kind sometimes, funny sometimes, capable of love when he wasn't so focused on what he wanted. That man is still in there somewhere. Find him." She heard him crying on the other end of the line. "Denise, I'm so sorry. I know you are. Goodbye, Garrett." She hung up, and for the first time since this whole nightmare began, Denise Thompson felt at peace. 6 months had passed since that phone call with Garrett. Denise stood in front of her bathroom mirror, adjusting the diamond necklace David had given her for her birthday. Tonight was the Thompson Foundation's annual gala, the biggest charity event of the year. 300 guests, $2 million expected in donations. And for the first time, Denise Thompson would be hosting it as herself. No disguises, no pretending, just the woman she'd always been. Her phone buzzed. Trish. "Girl, where are you? The caterers are having a meltdown about the shrimp." "I'm leaving now. What's wrong with the shrimp?" "Apparently someone ordered the wrong size. These are jumbo when they should be colossal. It's a whole thing." Denise laughed. "Tell them jumbo is fine. No one's going to measure the shrimp." "That's what I said. But the head chef is acting like it's a personal insult. Just get here fast." Denise grabbed her clutch and headed downstairs. David was waiting in the foyer, looking impossibly handsome in his tuxedo. "You look incredible," he said. "You clean up pretty nice yourself." He offered his arm. "Ready for your big debut?" "Ready as I'll ever be." They drove to the venue together, David's hand resting on hers. 6 months of dating, and it still felt new. Exciting. Real in a way her marriage to Garrett never had been. David knew everything about her. The money, the companies, the foundation. He'd known for years, long before they started dating. And he'd never once treated her differently because of it. "Nervous?" he asked. "A little. This is the first time most of these people will see the real me. For years I've been the quiet, non-profit worker in the corner. Tonight, I'm the host." "They're going to love you." "You have to say that." "I'm saying it because it's true." He squeezed her hand. "Denise, you've spent years helping people from the shadows. Tonight, you get to do it in the spotlight. That's not scary. That's wonderful." The gala was already in full swing when they arrived. Trish met them at the entrance, looking stunning in a red gown that probably cost more than most people's cars. "The shrimp crisis is resolved. The mayor just arrived. And there's someone here you need to see." "Who?" Trisha's expression was complicated. Garrett. Denise's stomach dropped. What? How did he get in? He bought a ticket. Online. $5,000. He doesn't have $5,000. Apparently he does now. Or someone gave it to him. Either way, he's here, and he's asking to speak with you. David stepped closer. Do you want me to have security remove him? Denise considered it. 6 months of peace. 6 months of building her new life. And now Garrett was here, threatening to disrupt everything. But she wasn't the same woman who'd hidden from her own husband for 8 years. She wasn't afraid of confrontation anymore. No, I'll talk to him, but stay close. She found Garrett near the bar, nursing a drink and looking wildly out of place. He'd lost weight. His suit was cheap, probably rented. But there was something different about him. Something in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Garrett. He turned, and his face lit up with something that looked almost like hope. Denise, thank you for seeing me. You shouldn't be here. I know, but I needed to see you, to show you something. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. What is this? Open it. Denise hesitated, then opened the envelope. Inside was a check, made out to the Thompson Foundation, for $50,000. I don't understand, she said. Garrett took a deep breath. After our last phone call, I did a lot of thinking. About who I was. About who I wanted to be. You were right. The man you married wasn't all bad. He was just lost. Focused on the wrong things. Where did you get this money? I got a job. Not a fancy marketing director job. I'm selling cars at a dealership in Marietta. It's not glamorous, but it's honest work. I've been saving every penny for 6 months. Garrett, this is your entire savings. I know, and I want the foundation to have it. Denise stared at him. Why? Because I spent 8 years married to a woman who dedicated her life to helping people, and I never once appreciated it. I mocked your charity work. I called it small and meaningless. But it wasn't. It was the most meaningful thing either of us ever did. His voice cracked. I can't undo what I did to you. I can't unsay the things I said. But I can try to be better. I can try to be the kind of man who gives instead of takes. This donation is my first step. Denise looked at the check in her hands. $50,000. The same amount the court had awarded him in the divorce. He was giving back everything he'd been given. Garrett, I can't accept this. Please, I need you to. It's the only way I can start to forgive myself. What about your own life, your own future? I'll make more. I'm good at selling cars, believe it or not. People trust me. Maybe because I finally learned how to be honest. Denise felt something shift inside her. Not love. That was gone forever. But something close to respect. You've changed. I'm trying to. Every day I'm trying to. I go to therapy twice a week. I call my mom, who I haven't spoken to in years. I volunteer at a homeless shelter on weekends. I'm not the man you married anymore. I'm not the man who walked out on you. Who are you then? Garrett smiled sadly. I'm someone who made the worst mistake of his life and is trying to earn his way back to being human. Denise looked at the check again, then back at Garrett. I'll accept this, on one condition. Anything. You keep going. Keep working on yourself. Keep being better. This isn't the end of your journey. It's just the beginning. I know. And Denise, I need you to know something else. What? I'm happy for you. Truly happy. I saw you walk in with that man, the doctor. I can see how he looks at you, like you're the most important person in the room. David is a good man. He's a better man than I ever was. And you deserve that. You deserve someone who sees you for who you are, not what you have. Denise felt tears prick her eyes. She hadn't expected this. She'd expected confrontation, manipulation, another attempt to get something from her. Instead, she got an apology, a real one. "Thank you, Garrett. Thank you for not having security throw me out." She laughed to spite herself. "The night is young." They stood there for a moment, two people who had once promised to spend their lives together, now standing at the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. "I should go," Garrett said. "I don't want to take up any more of your evening." "Garrett, wait!" He turned back. "There's someone I want you to meet." She led him across the room to where David was standing with Trish. "David, this is Garrett, my ex-husband." David's expression was guarded but polite. "I've heard a lot about you." "None of it good, I'm sure." Garrett extended his hand. "I just want to say, take care of her. She's the best person I've ever known, and I was too blind to see it." David shook his hand. "I plan to." "Good. That's good." Garrett nodded to Denise one last time. "Goodbye, Denise. Have a beautiful life." "Goodbye, Garrett." She watched him walk out of the gala, out of her life, and into whatever future he was building for himself. Trish appeared at her elbow. "What was that about?" Denise showed her the check. Trish's eyes went wide. "He gave you $50,000? Every penny from the divorce settlement. I don't know whether to be impressed or suspicious. I think for once he was actually being genuine. People don't change that much, Denise. Maybe not, but I think he's trying, and that's more than I ever expected." The rest of the evening was everything Denise had hoped for. She gave a speech about the Foundation's work, sharing stories of families they'd helped, communities they'd transformed. She announced a new initiative to provide job training for single mothers, funded by a $5 million grant from her personal foundation. The applause was thunderous. Afterward, donor after donor approached her, pledging money, offering partnerships, expressing admiration for her work. "You've been doing this for years," one woman said. "Why did you hide for so long?" Denise smiled. "Because I was afraid of being seen. But I've learned that hiding doesn't protect you. It just keeps you from being fully alive." By the end of the night, the foundation had raised $3.2 million, a new record. David found her on the terrace, looking out at the city lights. "Quite a night," he said. "Quite a night." He stood beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "I've been wanting to ask you something." "Ask." "Not here, not tonight, but soon." Denise turned to look at him. "David, what are you talking about?" He smiled. "You'll see, when the time is right." Before she could press him further, Trish burst onto the terrace. "Denise, you need to see this." "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong, just come." They followed Trish back inside, where a crowd had gathered around one of the display screens. It was a news segment, a local Atlanta station doing a feature on the gala. Tonight, Atlanta's elite gathered for the Thompson Foundation's annual gala, raising over $3 million for affordable housing initiatives. But the real story is the woman behind the foundation. Denise Thompson, a self-made billionaire who spent years hiding her wealth from the public eye. The screen showed clips of Denise's speech, interspersed with images of the wellness centers, the foundation projects, the families she'd helped. Thompson's story has captured the nation's attention. A woman who could have lived a life of luxury chose instead to dedicate her resources to helping those in need. Tonight, she stepped into the spotlight for the first time, and Atlanta is taking notice. The segment ended with a quote from one of the gala attendees. "She's proof that real wealth isn't about what you have. It's about what you do with it." Denise felt tears streaming down her face. David put his arm around her. "You okay?" "Better than okay. I think I'm finally exactly where I'm supposed to be." 2 weeks later, Denise received a letter. It was from Ashley Brooks Wellington. Denise almost threw it away unopened, but curiosity got the better of her. Dear Denise, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. I was the other woman, the one who helped destroy your marriage. I don't expect forgiveness, and I'm not asking for it. I'm writing because I saw the news coverage of your gala. I saw who you really are, and I realized something. I spent years chasing men with money, thinking that was the path to happiness. I used people, manipulated them, threw them away when they couldn't give me what I wanted. I thought I was being smart, strategic, but I was just empty. So empty that I couldn't see what really mattered. Garrett told me about your conversation at the gala. He told me about the donation he made. He's different now, changed in ways I didn't think were possible. If someone like Garrett can change, maybe I can too. I've started therapy. I'm working as an administrative assistant at a property management company. Not luxury real estate, just regular apartments for regular people. It's humbling, but it's honest. I don't know why I'm telling you this. Maybe I just need someone to know that I'm trying. That the woman who helped break your marriage is trying to become someone better. You don't have to respond to this letter. You don't have to forgive me. But I wanted you to know that your example matters. The way you've lived your life, using your resources to help others instead of just accumulating more for yourself, it matters. I hope to be even a fraction of the person you are someday. With sincere apologies, Ashley. Denise read the letter twice, then set it down. Trish was sitting across from her. What did she say? She's trying to change, like Garrett. You believe her? Denise thought about it. I don't know, but I think the possibility is worth something. 2 people who hurt me are now trying to be better because of what they saw in me. That's not nothing. You're more forgiving than I would be. I'm not forgiving them. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I can acknowledge that growth is possible, that people aren't always who they've been. Trish shook her head. You're something else, Denise Thompson. I'm just trying to be the person I always wanted to be, now that I don't have to hide anymore. That Sunday, Denise brought David to her mother's house for dinner. Mama Jean had been asking for weeks. She'd heard about the mysterious doctor from Marcus, from Trish, from everyone except Denise herself. She was determined to conduct her own evaluation. David arrived with flowers and a bottle of wine. Jean opened the door and looked him up and down. So you're the one? Yes, ma'am. David Chen. It's an honor to meet you. Chen? That's Chinese? Yes, ma'am. 3rd generation. And you're a doctor? Pediatric surgeon. I work mostly with children who need reconstructive surgery. Jean's expression softened slightly. Children. That's good work. It's the most rewarding thing I've ever done. Besides, meeting your daughter, of course. Jean almost smiled. Almost. Come in. Dinner's getting cold. The evening was a series of tests. Jean asked David about his family, his education, his intentions. She asked about his previous relationships, his financial situation, his views on marriage and children. David answered every question with patience and honesty. I was married once before, he said. We divorced 5 years ago. No children. We wanted different things. She wanted someone who would put career above everything else. I wanted a partnership. We weren't compatible. And what do you want now? David looked at Denise. I want someone who sees the world the way I do. Someone who believes that what you do for others matters more than what you accumulate for yourself. Someone who makes me want to be better every day. And that's my daughter? That's absolutely your daughter. Jean studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay. Okay. Okay, you can keep seeing her. But David Chen, if you hurt my baby the way that other one did, I will find you. And I'm a church woman, but the Lord will understand." David laughed. "I believe you, Mrs. Thompson, and I have no intention of hurting her. Ever." After dinner, Denise walked David to his car. "You survived," she said. "Barely. Your mother is terrifying." "She's protective. There's a difference." David took her hands. "Denise, I need to ask you something. I was going to wait, but I can't anymore." Denise's heart started racing. "What is it?" He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I know it's only been 6 months. I know you just got out of a terrible marriage. I know there are 100 reasons why this is too soon." He opened the box. Inside was a ring. Simple, elegant, perfect. "But I also know that when you find the right person, time doesn't matter." Denise Marie Thompson, I love you. Not your money, not your companies, not your foundation. You. The woman who hid her light for years because she wanted to be loved for herself. I see you. I've always seen you. Denise couldn't breathe. "David." "You don't have to answer tonight. You don't have to answer tomorrow. Take as much time as you need. But I wanted you to know that I'm ready, whenever you are." Denise looked at the ring, then at the man holding it. She thought about Garrett, who had seen her as nothing until he discovered she was something. She thought about Ashley, who had valued people only for what they could provide. She thought about all the years she'd spent hiding, testing, protecting herself from people who might use her. And she thought about David, who had known everything from the beginning and had never once treated her differently. "Yes." David blinked. "Yes?" "Yes. 100 times yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. And as he kissed her under the streetlight in front of her mother's house, Denise Thompson finally understood what she'd been searching for all along. Not someone who loved her money. Not someone who loved her success. Just someone who loved her. And she'd finally found him. 1 year later, Denise stood in front of the mirror in her childhood bedroom at Mama Jean's house. The wedding dress was everything she'd never had the first time. Elegant, expensive, chosen by her, for herself, without worrying about what anyone else would think. Trish was behind her, adjusting the train. "You look like a queen. I feel like I'm going to throw up." "That's normal. Every bride feels that way." "I didn't feel this way when I married Garrett." Trish paused. "Maybe because you knew, deep down, that something was wrong." Denise nodded. "Maybe. Or maybe I was too busy hiding to actually feel anything." Mama Jean appeared in the doorway. She was wearing her finest church dress, a lavender suit that made her look 10 years younger. "Baby, it's time." Denise turned to face her mother. "Mama, I'm scared." Jean walked over and took her daughter's hands. "Scared of what?" "Scared that I'll mess this up, that I'll hide again, that I'll push David away the same way I kept Garrett at arm's length." "Denise Marie Thompson, listen to me." Jean's voice was firm. "You didn't push Garrett away. He pushed himself away by being small-minded and shallow. David is different. He sees you, all of you, and he loves what he sees." "How do you know?" "Because I watched him all through dinner that night. Every time you spoke, he leaned in. Every time you laughed, he smiled. That man doesn't love your money. He loves your heart." Denise felt tears threatening her makeup. "Mama, don't make me cry. Then stop asking silly questions and go marry that man." The ceremony was held in the garden of Denise's estate. 200 guests, half of them family and friends, half of them colleagues and foundation partners. David stood at the altar, looking at her like she was the only person in the world. As Denise walked down the aisle on Marcus's arm, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. 8 years of hiding from a man who never deserved her honesty. The night Garrett walked out, calling her worthless. The revelation that had shattered his assumptions and sent him spiraling. The long months of healing, of learning to be herself again. And then David, patient, kind, genuine David, who had known everything from the beginning and had never once made her feel like her money defined her. She reached the altar. David took her hands. "You're shaking," he whispered. "Good shaking, excited shaking." "Me too." The officiant began the ceremony, but Denise barely heard the words. She was too focused on David's eyes, on the way he looked at her, on the knowledge that this time she was making the right choice. When it came time for the vows, David went first. "Denise, I've known you for 5 years. For 3 of those years, I watched you from a distance, too afraid to tell you how I felt. You were married. You seemed happy, and I thought, that's enough. Just being in her orbit is enough." His voice cracked. "But then everything changed, and I learned something I should have known all along. Denise Thompson doesn't just light up a room. She lights up the world. Every child we've helped through the foundation, every family that has a home because of your generosity, every person whose life is better because you decided to care. That's who you are. That's who I'm marrying." He squeezed her hands. "I promise to see you, not your money, not your success, you, every day, for the rest of our lives." Denise wiped her eyes. "How am I supposed to follow that?" The guests laughed. She took a breath. "David, when I met you, I was hiding. From myself, from the world, from anyone who might discover who I really was. I thought if people knew about my wealth, they would only see dollar signs. I thought I had to be small to be loved. You taught me that was a lie. You knew everything about me, and you treated me like I was just Denise. Not Thompson Wellness Group, not the foundation. Just Denise. The woman who clips coupons even though she doesn't have to. The woman who still eats her mama's collard greens with her fingers when she thinks no one's looking." The guests laughed again. Mama Jean pretended to look offended. "You showed me that being seen doesn't have to be scary. That the right person will love you more, not less, when they know who you really are. I spent 8 years hiding from the wrong person. I don't want to spend another minute hiding from the right one. I promise to be honest with you. Always. No secrets. No disguises. Just me. For the rest of our lives." The officiant smiled. "By the power vested in me by the state of Georgia, I now pronounce you husband and wife. David, you may kiss your bride." David kissed her, and the crowd erupted in applause. Denise Thompson Chen. A new name for a new chapter. The reception was beautiful. Speeches were given. Toasts were made. Trish told embarrassing stories from their college days. Marcus threatened David with bodily harm if he ever hurt his sister. Mama Jean cried through the entire mother-daughter dance. And then, near the end of the evening, something unexpected happened. One of the servers approached Denise with a note. "Ma'am, someone left this at the front gate. They said you'd want to see it." Denise opened the envelope. Inside was a card with a simple message. "Congratulations on your wedding. You deserve every happiness. I'm sorry I couldn't be the man you needed. But I'm grateful that I finally became the man I was supposed to be. Thank you for seeing potential in me, even when I couldn't see it in myself. G." Denise looked toward the gate. There was no one there. David appeared at her side. "Everything okay?" "Garrett sent his congratulations." "Really? That's unexpected." "He's different now. Or at least, he's trying to be." David studied her face. "Does it bother you that he reached out?" Denise thought about it. "No, I think it's closure. For both of us." She tucked the card into her clutch and turned back to her husband. "Dance with me?" "Always." They moved on to the dance floor as the band played something slow and beautiful. Denise rested her head on David's shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. about how different my life is now. A year ago, I was sitting in that little apartment watching my husband pack his bags. Now I'm married to the best man I've ever known, running my companies in the open, helping more people than ever before. Sounds like a pretty good year. The best. And it's only going to get better. David pulled back to look at her. Speaking of which, there's something I need to tell you. What? I wasn't going to mention it tonight. I didn't want to overshadow the wedding. But I can't wait anymore. Denise's heart started racing. David, you're scaring me. He smiled. Don't be scared. I got a phone call today. From the Gates Foundation. The Gates Foundation? They've been watching our medical outreach programs, the work we've done in underserved communities. They want to partner with us, a joint initiative to provide pediatric surgical care in developing countries. Denise's eyes went wide. Are you serious? Completely serious. They're talking about $100 million in funding, enough to help hundreds of thousands of children. Denise felt tears streaming down her face again. David, that's incredible. It's us, our work, together. This is what happens when two people combine their resources and their hearts for something bigger than themselves. She kissed him right there on the dance floor. I love you. I love you too. Now can we finish this dance? I think your mother is taking pictures. They swayed together as the song ended, and Denise realized that this was what she'd been searching for all along. Not just love, not just success. Purpose, connection, partnership. Someone who saw her as she was and wanted to build something meaningful together. 3 months after the wedding, Denise got a phone call that would change everything again. Mrs. Chen, this is Dr. Martinez from Emory Women's Center. I have the results of your blood work. Denise gripped the phone tighter. Yes? Congratulations. You're pregnant. The world stopped spinning. What? Pregnant. About 8 weeks along based on your numbers. I'd like to schedule an ultrasound to confirm. Denise couldn't speak. Mrs. Chen, are you there? I'm here. I didn't expect this. We weren't trying. Sometimes the best things happen when we're not trying. Can you come in tomorrow afternoon? Yes, I'll be there. Denise hung up and sat down heavily. Pregnant. At 43 years old, after years of thinking it would never happen, she was pregnant. She didn't tell David right away. She wanted to be sure. She wanted to see the ultrasound, hear the heartbeat, know that this was real. The next day, she lay on the examination table while Dr. Martinez moved the wand across her belly. And there it was, a tiny heartbeat, fast and strong. That's your baby, Dr. Martinez said. Healthy and right on track. Denise stared at the screen. That's really happening. It's really happening. Given your age, we'll want to monitor you closely, but everything looks perfect right now. That night, Denise made David's favorite dinner: grilled salmon, roasted vegetables, the expensive wine they saved for special occasions. He walked in from work and immediately sensed something. What's going on? What do you mean? You're smiling. You've been crying. And you made salmon. Something's happening. Denise handed him a small gift box. David opened it. Inside was a pair of tiny baby shoes and the ultrasound photo. He stared at it for a long moment. Denise, is this? We're having a baby. David's face went through 100 emotions in 5 seconds. Shock, disbelief, joy, fear, and finally, overwhelming love. We're having a baby, he repeated. 8 weeks along, everything looks healthy. He pulled her into his arms so tight she could barely breathe. I I hoped, but I never. Me neither, but here we are. He pulled back, tears streaming down his face. I love you so much. I love you too. We're going to be parents. We're going to be parents. They stood in the kitchen, holding each other, the ultrasound photo between them like a promise of everything to come. The pregnancy was not easy. At 43, Denise's body had to work harder than it would have at 25. There were days of exhaustion, nights of worry, moments when she wondered if she was strong enough for this. But David was there, every appointment, every difficult day, every moment of doubt. You're the strongest person I know, he told her during a particularly hard week. If anyone can do this, it's you. Trish came over 3 times a week with food and encouragement. Mama Jean started knitting baby clothes, even though the doctor said not to buy anything until the 3rd trimester. Marcus called every day to check on her. And slowly, steadily, the baby grew. At 5 months, they learned it was a girl. Denise cried for an hour. What are we going to name her? David asked. I want to name her after my grandmother. May Jean Chen. May Jean Chen. It's perfect. At 7 months, Denise went into premature labor. It happened suddenly. One moment she was at a board meeting. The next, she was gripping the table in pain as everyone around her panicked. The ambulance ride was a blur. David met her at the hospital, still in his scrubs from surgery. What's happening? Is she okay? They're trying to stop the labor. It's too early, David. It's too early. He held her hand while the doctors worked. Hours passed, the longest hours of Denise's life. Finally, Dr. Martinez came in with news. We've stopped the contractions. Your daughter is still safe. But Denise, you're going to be on bed rest for the remainder of your pregnancy. No work, no stress, complete rest. But the company, the foundation, the Gates Initiative. We'll all be there when your daughter is safely in your arms. Right now, nothing is more important than keeping her inside for as long as possible. Denise looked at David. Can you handle things? Without me? I'll handle everything. Trish and I will manage the business side. You just focus on May. Promise me. I promise. 2 months later, May Jean Chen came into the world. She was small, 5 pounds 3 ounces, but she was healthy. She was perfect. Denise held her daughter for the first time and felt something shift inside her. A love so overwhelming it physically hurt. Hi, baby girl, she whispered. I'm your mama, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you know exactly how loved you are. David sat beside her, tears streaming down his face. She has your eyes. She has your stubborn chin. That's going to be trouble. The best kind of trouble. Mama Jean arrived an hour later, pushing past the nurses to get to her granddaughter. Let me see ya. Let me see my grandbaby. Denise handed May over carefully. Jean held the tiny bundle like she was made of glass. Hello, sweet girl. I'm your grandmama, and I'm going to spoil you rotten. Mama, don't start. Hush. Grandmothers get to spoil. It's in the contract. Marcus came next, then Trish, then a steady stream of family and friends who had watched Denise's journey, from hidden billionaire to happy mother. And somewhere in all the chaos and joy, Denise realized something. Everything she'd been through, the hiding, the heartbreak, the betrayal, the rebuilding, it had all led here, to this moment, to this child, to this life. 1 year later, Denise stood in front of a crowd at the Thompson Foundation's annual gala. May was in David's arms, wearing a tiny dress that Mama Jean had made by hand. The crowd was larger than ever. 500 guests, $10 million in expected donations. 10 years ago, Denise began, I started this foundation because I believed that wealth was meaningless, unless it was used to help others. I spent years working in the shadows, hiding who I was, afraid that people would only see my money instead of my heart. She looked at David and May. But I've learned something since then. Hiding doesn't protect you. It just keeps you from living fully, from loving fully, from being exactly who you're meant to be. She turned back to the crowd. Tonight, I'm proud to announce that the Thompson Foundation is expanding. With the support of the Gates Foundation and partners around the world, we're launching a global initiative to provide healthcare, housing, and hope to families in need. Our goal is to help 1 million people in the next 5 years. The applause was deafening. But I couldn't have done any of this alone. My husband, Dr. David Chen, has been my partner in everything. My mother, Jean Thompson, taught me that true wealth is measured in love, not dollars. My best friend, Patricia Banks, has kept me sane through every challenge. And my daughter, May, reminds me every day why this work matters. She felt tears threatening. To anyone watching who has ever felt worthless, who has ever been told they're not enough, who has ever hidden who they are because they were afraid of being seen, I want you to know something. She took a breath. You are enough, exactly as you are. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise, and don't spend your life hiding from people who don't deserve to know the real you. Spend it finding the people who do. She raised her glass. To being seen, to being loved, to being exactly who we were meant to be. The crowd raised their glasses. To being seen. After the gala, Denise walked through the garden with May in her arms. David found them near the fountain. That was quite a speech. I meant every word. I know you did. He put his arm around her. Do you ever think about what would have happened if Garrett hadn't left? Denise looked at her daughter, at the ring on her finger, at the life she'd built. I think about it sometimes, and then I'm grateful that he did. Really? If Garrett hadn't walked out that night, I'd still be hiding, still pretending to be someone I'm not. I'd never have found you. I'd never have had May. I'd never have become who I was meant to be. So his cruelty was a gift? His cruelty was a wake-up call. Sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones who set us free. David kissed her forehead. I love you, Denise Thompson Chen. I love you too, David Chen. They stood together in the garden, a family forged from pain and triumph and love. And Denise finally understood the truth she'd been searching for her entire life. Your worth isn't determined by what others can see. It isn't measured by money or status or the opinions of people who don't deserve your truth. Your worth is who you are when no one is watching. Who you are when everything falls apart. Who you become when you finally stop hiding. Garrett Mitchell had called her worthless. He'd called her nothing. He'd thrown away 8 years of marriage for a woman who couldn't give him what he wanted. And in doing so, he'd given Denise the greatest gift of all. He'd set her free. Free to be seen. Free to be loved. Free to become exactly who she was always meant to be. If you've ever been called worthless, if you've ever been thrown away by someone who didn't see your value, if you've ever hidden who you are because you were afraid of what people might think, remember Denise's story. Remember that the people who underestimate you often give you the greatest gift. They remove themselves from your life and make room for the people who deserve to be there. You are not worthless. You are not nothing. You are somebody extraordinary. And anyone who can't see that doesn't deserve to know the real you. The end. If this story touched your heart, smash that like button and subscribe for more incredible true stories. Drop a comment telling me about a time someone underestimated you. I read every single one. And remember, your worth isn't determined by what others can see. It's determined by who you truly are.